this is one of the most powerful plant medicine healing experiences that you can possibly go through.
Evolving is like an unfolding and emerging into something that would be the next level of what you are.
I've seen there be a lot of toxic masculinity being pushed upon men in both the dating and in the business spaces online.
Here we are, guys, back with another episode of the Evolve Your Brand podcast. I'm your host, Dave Gold, and on today's episode, I've got Ezriyah Ben Derrick. He is the leader of the embodiment movement. He's also a prominent leader in the mentorship brotherhood circle that I've really leaned on for a lot of my time here in Tulum. We've connected, we've hosted a very powerful retreat, yeah. And I've seen the work that you've done and also how you've grown in relationship with yourself, with women, with other men, with your business. And so I thought it would be really cool to talk to you a little bit about your evolution. So first off, what does evolution mean to you and how have you evolved over your life?
It's a beautiful question. Also, thank you for having me on. Great to sit with you, connect in this way. Every time someone says the term evolution, I really think involution, right? Evolving is like an unfolding and emerging into something that would be the next level of what you are. And so when I hear that word, I automatically bring my mind to involution, which is looking inside and drawing from within like a seed. What is it that I want to bring forth? So, it's been a life of real ass kickings in some ways, but also I'm geared for it. I can handle an ass kicking. So coming to the realization of, sometimes life is like that. It doesn't have to be, but when it is, I can take it. And I think that's been a real empowerment. And then the decision to say, okay, I've done a lot of that. I know how to receive a lesson. How can I receive lessons in a way that's less combative? But if I need to have combat, then so be it. And in a way that's still getting me and also more so the people around me to a place of maturity and insight and like being able to pass the baton as I've heard in the past. So passing the baton is really important to me. Not so much me building some legacy of my own, but, assisting in the legacy of what it is to pass down, to come into maturity. That's the evolution of us, is appreciating maturity as a top, ideal and priority, and then seeking ways to disillusion myself to come into that space. So that's the mark that I leave behind.
I love it. So you talk about passing the baton. Yeah. And I think this is a really powerful concept. Maybe we can dive a little bit deeper. When it comes to passing the baton to men who are working on themselves and looking to have more conscious relationships, have more prominent businesses, and women that are looking to step into their surrender, their femininity, but also continue to grow in their leadership role as well. What does that look like to pass the baton onto other people, other men and women who are stepping up to the plate in this life?
Well, in that space, I feel it's more helping them to reach the baton, to get that head start run from the other people that are running. So it's like, what has been working? What hasn't been working? Are you in shape to really carry a legacy of what you say that you desire? Do you want to be responsible for other people and their emotions? Do you want to be responsible, right? Able to respond with your finances, with your skill set that you've come to earth with, to be able to proliferate that. So it looks like, people really wanting to initiate themselves. So what I'm in that space, I'm looking for people who, because there's nothing more than I've wanted in this life is to just be in harmony and to be able to just be at ease with how I see people as connected to me in truth. And so then I look for people who are seeking truth overall, and they do the best in ceremonies, because the ceremonies can be disillusionment. And also then the process is identifying core needs, goals. Your golden thread, I think, is probably one of the most important things. Many people identify their special talent, but your golden thread also will help you to tap into your genius, and you can use it as a lens to perceive the whole reality, a good feedback lens.
Yeah. So I've had a mentor who's changed my life, and he said that being a coach in this space is like a full combat sport. Because you're dealing with emotions, you're dealing with people. And I've noticed this spectrum of challenges has ranged far greater than being a veteran, than growing up in a family where there was toxicity. Being in the coaching space is not an easy thing to do, yet many of the people who follow me have this dream or this desire to build a 10 or 50 or 100K month coaching business. What do you think are some of the misconceptions when it comes to being a leader, being a coach or consultant, and creating the lifestyle business of your dreams?
Great question, but also great observation. I feel folks have a misconception about the level of dedication that might be necessary based on what's being provided to them. You have also within these spaces people who made their fortune in other ways and then say, I can help you do it quickly. They can help you do it a little bit quicker, but there's still, some fortitude that one needs to cultivate, some courage, some underlying foundational basics that many people haven't had the opportunity to cultivate in truth because there was that mentorship missing in their life. Now, for you being a veteran, myself having spent so much time career-wise, working with the military, but also just being someone who actually, I do well in chain of command. I like structure. And so it's not mindless, structure, but that of a warrior who's also looking to then pass that structure along. And a lot of folks don't respond well to structure. People don't know in truth when to shut the fuck up and just listen and receive, because Gabriel's mentioned it as well, right?
Yeah.
You can sort of learn while you're talking if you're listening to yourself and really being able to hear yourself. But there are lenses and there are impositions that we incorporate into our way of being that one would need help and you need to trust the person. And then there is like an obedience, a submission in that process of saying, I do trust this person. Not that they won't have flaws, but also there is an experience, there's a reason why I'm called to them. Can I really grasp and take hold of that? Can I get out of my own way? And can I allow them to help me get out of my way, even in the one-on-one dynamic? And we're so injured within ourselves. We've come to believe so many things that we're not even aware of about our own psyche and about that of other people, that it is a combat even to get to what do you really feel and to operate in the truth of what you really feel. People dislike each other, but they don't really dislike each other like they think. There's the racism thing that comes up, but really there's a tremendous amount of ignorance around the true connection between all of us that is evident when certain things are perpetuated. And so it's like, really, if we want to call it like combat, then we want to hammer down and really get to the end of that combat. That has to be the goal. That would be a goal for me when I speak to harmony. So I'm within self and outside of self. First, so much. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm reading The Ultimate Coach, Steve Hardison. I'm mentioning it on this podcast multiple times now. And some people step into his office and they feel like he's a Wolverine. He's intense. He can also be calm. But one thing they notice about him, the $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 coach, is that his level of presence is greater than they've ever experienced in their life. And vulnerable share, I'm connecting with this beautiful soul right now. And they recently told me, David, I love being around you. And yet there's this subtle element where you could become more present with me when we're together. And it's bringing me back to the moments where I've had the most success in my business, where I wasn't relying on ChatGPT or something that my mentor told me or some system or process that I created in my business. The only thing that really mattered in that moment was I was listening so intensely to that person that they felt like me and them were the only people in the world.
Excellent.
And so what I wanted to understand from you, if you could talk into it, is how can a man cultivate a deeper emotional intelligence while maintaining that leadership presence?
I think they go hand in hand. First and foremost, you're the leader of yourself, right? You volunteered for this mission in this body. So then you're responsible for 100% and then some of what goes on. And that includes being present. So identifying what you desire, giving yourself the time to be present with yourself first and foremost before you dedicate that presence to someone else, and checking in to say, do I have that presence? Because then you can even relay that in your relationships. And that's a high level of articulating where you stand. The rest is then observing, can this person receive what you just shared? You see? And so it's like, first and foremost, first line is, hey, where am I at with myself? Do I have things on my mind that I need to, settle before now sitting with this beautiful partner? And if you haven't settled them, don't be rushed into putting them aside. Maybe you need to take that time, because then it's different when you come into a woman's presence and I'm going to give her all my sweet attention, and I'm going to nurture her and water her and flower, or witness her bloom before my eyes, and I'm going to pay attention to every bit, every moment of that unfoldment. So I know how to do that in that space, and it does make an impact. And you can do that with your plants as well, and with yourself, but do that with yourself first.
Before we started the interview, you were telling me about conflict resolution.
Sure.
Something that has come up at different points in my life, also in this second chapter here in Tulum. And when it comes to conflict resolution, I guess we don't learn this in high school or college.
No.
And if you do get into the conscious, spiritual space, you might have come across nonviolent communication. However, not many people that I've seen have really mastered how to communicate in that nonviolent way. So are there any tips or any advice that you would give to someone if they feel like there might be a conflict resolution that needs to take place between themselves and a client, a mentor, or even a family member, so that they could navigate that relationship or that communication with more ease?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Thank you for asking about that and mentioning that, like the non-violent conflict resolution is somewhat bullshit. And I'll say, I'll say it to the author space. Even though I appreciate it, I read the book, I can utilize it, but also, like, if you're not telling the truth, you're committing violence. So if you're not honest with yourself, even if you're trying to be tactful, if you're not touching the core of why you want to communicate with this person and the productive, efficient, ideal, reality that you'd like to create, and keeping that at the forefront, then your communication is still violent no matter how nice you sound with the person, because it's not coming through in truth. So truth, which is aligned to justice, which is, giving everyone every opportunity to really know what's going on and to be in the same reality, that's nonviolent communication. We seldom see this now, especially in our spiritual communities. I'm not saying I'm not and haven't been guilty of it, but I've definitely put a lot of effort, and it's come at a lot of conflict. I've gone in 2 years straight of saying, you know what, I'm gonna really work hard to identify and speak the truth of what's going on inside me, and I'm willing to do it at the risk of a pseudo dynamic to get to the real truth, intimate truth that exists between me and said person, even if it means we go different ways for a time. That takes tremendous amount of courage. It takes being willing to be uncomfortable, which is something that we just, we run away from in our dopamine culture. And it also takes some foresight and maturity to know that, hey, in truth, we've seen this before, choosing to be honest and choosing the kindest way possible to be direct, but also knowing your boundaries and just stating the fullness of who you are. This gets you to the goal in the end, because in the end, it's your organs that will testify against you. It's your memory of that moment that will either create resentment within you and sour the relationship that was and the ones to come, or open up the door for you to at least feel good about yourself before you close your eyes at night. And then that will translate energetically in the rest of your dynamics and interactions. And I really have practiced it quietly, except for those who've received it from me.
Yeah.
And you can always preface something that's uncomfortable by saying, hey, we're gonna have a talk and it's gonna be uncomfortable. And the other part is, please don't run away. Can we get there? Can we go all the way through the thing? And when there's that level of commitment between two people, then you can resolve conflict, because what you've done is you've said, my internal conflict and yours aren't worth jeopardizing the opportunity for us to have a true harmony, and we're gonna get there. So really the core of the work that I do is I get people through, but I get people through who also want to get themselves through. I push them across through, because I do mostly with integration. So whether if it's the plant medicine, you're going through a death and a rebirth experience, but we can do this also. If it's dealing with the phobia of water, when I take people surfing, I'm able to get someone who's been afraid of water for years up on a board.
Wow.
And so I've been doing that for years now. That's like my little hidden. So I have a real beautiful connection with the water, and surf as a healing modality. And then also folks who are navigating with drug issues and PTSD, whether it be through the medicine or the long-term walk with no substances, I'm adept at moving through those spaces. And what a person needs is consistency commitment, dedication, devotion. And if you're open to cultivating those things, then I can work magic with you because I'm going to be more devoted than you. And so all you need to do is take my hand.
I was going to take us in a different direction, but you brought up the medicine paths for a second. So I would love to ask you about Iboga. Is that fair?
That's fine.
So this is something that I don't know much about, and I think probably the audience might have never heard about Iboga, or if they have, there might be some kind of fear or misconception. So what I've heard is that this is one of the most powerful plant medicine healing experiences that you can possibly go through, and that it's over not just a few hours, but even a few days. And it can heal PTSD, it can heal toxic relationship with drugs, or with certain family members. Or what is it that got you on this path of relating to Iboga, and what would it take for someone to feel called to potentially say, you know what, I want to go through this experience?
Well, okay, I'm gonna share something with you that maybe only a few people know, but I consider Iboga like a family member.
Wow.
So for me, this medicine helped me to come back from a space of illness. I was able to cure my second journey of cancer, utilizing it, yes, and also navigate through my PTSD, my own personal PTSD. I've witnessed it shift people's personality. So there's things that most people in the plant medicine realm stay away from in terms of psychological issues, but I don't shy from that. It's very necessary for me to have the truth, and then we can navigate because it's giving me a different perspective. So I would go so far as to say, and I haven't tried out all the different plant medicines in the world, and I have respect for all these medicine consciousnesses who also have personalities, by the way, as you've probably noted, which means they have egos, which means there's a trade for utilizing them in this space. And so for the integration and for the work that is done with Iboga, which is Iboga tabernae, which is found located in Africa, specifically Gabon, Cameroon, that region. And now there's derivatives that can be found elsewhere. With this medicine, many people are, utilizing ibogaine, which is one part of the alkaloid, of the many alkaloids that medicine holds. And these alkaloids help to regenerate the body. They can give you kind of a super boost, if you will. And the lucidity of the communication with that medicine and what it creates is very different from that of the other medicines. There's no mystery game. It's really direct. Like a lucid dream can be direct, but maybe in an astral experience, you have some things that you may need to uncover. Iboga, depending on the individual, also depending on the person who's guiding you through the process, and everything, right? Your aftercare. It's really important to identify a proper person, because people can work in medicine, a proper facilitator. In my case, when I want to go heal, I sat with Kambo, and then I did a deep dive with Bufo, and then I went up to Gabon and I initiated. Now, for me to go to Gabon, I was guided through dreams from my grandmother and my mother. And so I needed a lot of convincing, if you will. And there were the kind of synchronicities that I couldn't write happened for me to decide, okay, first I made the decision. I felt the call, and then I went along, and it was a phenomenal experience. A journey can be about a week. I stayed for a month, and in truth, I journeyed with the medicine for close to a year.
Some people say Iboga can be very painful. Is that accurate?
For some people, but I think it's still relative.
Right.
Like for me, if I have to go through pain to cure, if I have to lob off a testicle to not have cancer, I made that choice. So if I need to lose an arm to stay in here and get what's got to get done, then I'll cut it off myself. That's a different way of doing things. I did my own Brit Mila, So it's like the blood thing. So that might be a bit extreme, but I guess I could consider myself that kind of person, in coherency. And with Iboga, depending on, again, your level of honesty and all the other external parameters, the experience may be painful because it's cleansing. It may be painful because you're now going to come face to face with some emotional things that you needed to heal.
Is it something that you drink?
It's a root bark that's dried up,
okay,
and then ingested. And there is a bit of preparation beforehand. So for me, I went to Gabon. I sat with Ibando, and that's a mixture. There's a couple of different types of ceremony that one can be initiated in. And theirs is a mixture of like, it's the Feng, people who've come in and their tradition. So there's some syncretism there, but then it's a mixture of the Desumba and Nsoko, which would be like the Twa, or as people call them, Pygmies, who were first working with that. And then the indigenous Bantu people of the land of Gabon, which I'm a relative of, come to find out afterwards. Wow. So that's why I say that I consider it a family member, because the Mayane and Goloa people who I would, be descended from, I have 100%. I can probably get, citizenship there. Gabonese citizenship, because I have at least that document that shows 100% relation. And those are people who were in the land, of course, after the Twa and the Pygmy, and which I may also be related with them too. And then the Fang who migrated later. And so I feel really grateful to have had that experience, which was an initiation to be able to receive the medicine. And then also it was a rites of passage. I also did the rites of passage as well, where I had to perform in front of elders. And so it's a whole process. And I think it's a cleansing medicine from top to bottom. So yeah, it is. I heard it's very powerful. And I think you can attain a lot of the same things depending on your physiological constitution with maybe other medicines. But for this African descendant, prism of a body, it was just what I needed to get really back to my roots. And I just want to make sure that I'm answering the question. Iboga is really about clarity and directness, a different type of balance than we're used to. There's no mixing it with anything. It is complete. It's a complete medicine, a complete being that you get to connect with. And so, of course, there's people taking one element out of it and you can still achieve some results. But for me, I like and respond well to the complete alkaloid. That's just what I serve. It's the wood. Passe.
The passe. So we've talked about conflict resolution, nonviolent communication, some incredibly powerful healing modalities, also plant medicine that doesn't get talked a lot about in the online space. Now let's talk about something that does get talked about a lot, like masculinity.
Okay.
Right? And it's kind of how we've connected through a men's circle. And I know you work with a lot of men, as do I. We've even hosted a men's retreat together. And I've seen there be a lot of toxic masculinity being pushed upon men in both the dating and in the business spaces online. Why do you think there has been this rise of toxic masculinity, this disillusionment amongst men? And how can we get back to being strong, grounded, and empowered male leaders in our business and also in our relationships?
That's a great question and thing to look at. And we speak to the term toxic masculinity, but I think maybe it's good that we break that apart. Masculinity in and of itself isn't toxic. There are toxic behaviors that are associated with those in masculine bodies. And so we tend to lump it together. And I think even that term has created a certain, thing for people to rail at. Because when we dig to the bottom of the toxicity, what we find is there are wounds that haven't been addressed. There is a fear, ultimately a fear of death to some degree, that is so powerful that or annihilation, that we respond a certain way just based on that. And this is then, the results are toxic. And so then what is the cure? Well, if a man knows his principles and he's aligning his principles and his values to things that are going to be beneficial, first and foremost for himself, but really aligned to beneficial unfoldments for society, right? Which we can agree, it's easy to see some things would be beneficial for society. And then for the women involved in their lives and their children and the next couple of generations, if you align your life and your decisions to that, then the toxicity is going to dissipate, because now what you're bringing in is healing. You're bringing in compassion. You're bringing in vision and the empowered stance, action, posturing, and decision-making and judgments even, to then create that structure, which is what we do. We've been put in these bodies that are fantastic for creating structure and for getting people through insanity. And so what we're contending with then is myriad of different versions of societal insanity that some people come out of, and we call it becoming conscious or awakening. And then it's a marathon, I think, lifetime process, because we haven't finished it yet. And so if it wasn't finished in the, how many ever hundreds of thousands of years that we've been around, okay, 10, 5, we would say 5. 1,000 years that we've been at it, and we're now in this yuga, the 26,000 year turn, then we just take the best, I don't want to say stab at it, but let's put the best foot forward. And that's going to require deep levels of honesty and the willingness to identify the conflict, to identify maybe why it's been, but to look to the ideal and do whatever is necessary to get to the actual ideal, because we are idealistic as men.
Yes.
That's the core of our heart. Why I love men so much is we're the romantic ones in truth. Women get the truth coming out. They're geared, they're playing with dolls, they're playing with trucks. It's not an excuse, but we're like mechanical. Oh, this car's got these wheels, but she's already in their heads, and in the dating realm, you understand, the different ways of working with our differences as men and women and pulling on those things. But it's great to then identify those differences and our similarities and then begin to work the two in a complementary way. We're complementary, we're not opposites. And there's a difference that isn't discussed often.
Beautiful, powerful. And one thing you said was putting your best foot forward. And I've seen you grow so much in just the short period of time that we've known each other. And I've also seen this community of Tulum change a lot. And many people told me, oh man, I've been there before, it's changed. So we live in a world where things are constantly evolving.
Yes.
Especially communities like some of the ones we've lived in, Copenhagen, Tulum, you've lived in Hawaii, right, Bali.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to understand is what's your vision and your hope for living in a place like a Tulum or a Bali? How do you want to, see this community evolve so that it just doesn't talk about consciousness and healing, but it actually starts to integrate the lessons that it's teaching to others into practicality so that it includes as well the whole society at large?
Yeah, my answer to that would be, one, if we're involving practicality, then we need to learn to be more pragmatic. And so that's looking again and expanding our ability to look around and see what's working and what hasn't worked more rapidly. And then to employ pragmatic approaches, which means being grounded, identifying the simple things, that need to be done and taken care of for us to expand, and then incorporating the esoteric into that, because they do go hand in hand in a way. And so if you're neglecting one aspect, the more basic aspects of what it is to be, the more basic aspects of, what kind of character do you want to develop? What kind of world do you want to see? And then applying that to yourself. I first and foremost hold myself accountable. I'm applying it to me. Ezriyah is the body, is so to say part of the body, one of the body. And the consciousness that I'm using to navigate this frame is holding all of this accountable first and foremost. And so then whoever I let in my presence, or whoever I'm coming into presence with, then it's going to be known, this is what I stand for. So I have to always be clear on that, and then check. And I'm open to being checked, but then I'm going to check again. And if it is what I stand for, then that's what it is. How do I want to, and what is important in terms of creating healthy space? Boundaries. So I uphold my boundaries, and also I respect the boundaries of others. Proper communication, which comes to a resultant. What is the resultant in that communication? I'm ever conscious of, we're talking about something, or did we get to a resolution? Can we get to a resolution? What are we willing to sacrifice to get to the resolution? Because the revolution is not often televised, but it's from in here. And so I'm just about willing to, up into a loss of life on my end, to bring myself into the state that I've called myself into by incarnating in this body. And so it's kind of get down and lay down in that stance, meaning my body's getting down, it's listening to me, it's working with me. I'm creating a life that means something to me, and that's not like heavy footprint in a negative way. And I'm willing to do the work to shift that. And then from that space, that embodied space, then authoritatively, I will call everyone else into that space. And this is what we'll do as men. And that would be the healthy version of our masculinity, which doesn't negate our feminine essence, which speaks to in a soft, kind, and tender way, which also we can give attention to ourselves as men and give attention to other men for the things that are worthy of attention, right? And intention, and then craft something that we can all agree is beneficial, which means rooting out all the shit that has not been beneficial over the years, which have created conflict, which we're still contending with now. And so being able to put it on the table right there and to look at it and then to hold each other's hands as we kind of move through it with the intention of going from that hand holding to a hug of support and brotherhood in its truth.
Yeah,
That's
and I hear the practicality, and I think both grew up in the U.S., a very consumeristic society,
Yeah.
and now we start to see that consumerism and that capitalism start to trickle in to other countries that expats and digital nomads choose to call home for many incredible reasons. However, we have to remember, as one powerful man, Mutual Connection, has been reminding me, that you got to respect the land and you got to respect the people who have created this space and cultivated this space and provide such a beautiful space for us to call home, whether that means feeding the local people, the single mothers, whether that means giving an offering to the water, whether that means creating your own community service project. I joined a $10,000 mastermind of entrepreneurs from pretty much the US. And the most impactful experience that I remember from that year being a part of that mastermind was going out to Baja California and building a home for a family and donating thousands of dollars in order to take a family that was living in a shack and just giving them a home. And that meant the world to them, but it also did wonders for me and for my business and for my relationships and for the light that I'm shining on others. Taking the time to remember that it's in the giving that we receive so much. And when we're always focused on taking and consuming and thinking, what's in it for me? And how do I get the next dream client?
Yes.
And how do I attract the dream partner? That you're forgetting everything is energy, and the energy that you're cultivating in the community that you live in could go a very, very long way in creating the lifestyle that you truly desire.
It's amazing. So, and what I hear here is, really understanding the life cycle of your ambition. We've been taught to be ambitious in the States, whether it's through sports, academia, any of the areas of life, education, entertainment, labor, law, sex, religion, politics, war, blah, 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 all these different areas, health, right? Wealth, finances, romance. And so the life cycle, having an idea about the life cycle means, well, that as you cultivate your wealth, where would it go? What's the most fulfilling direction, truly fulfilling direction that the wealth can go, is to help other people to lift up their standard of living, to create that space, for folks to have the opportunity to feel some of what you get to feel, but also to play your part in it. And so I think that's really important for people to consider. What is the life cycle of your ambition? Meaning, ultimately, what are you seeking to accomplish outside of yourself, within yourself, to your partner, to nature, and for the long haul? And because that will cycle back, because we never know what happens, especially taking all the risk in business. Sometimes based on economy or other things, there's a lull. But knowing that you can get through that by what sustained you, which is the land, the food from the land. Those people, those same people who you help may be the ones that offer you a place to stay and rest, in the barrio. And it's like, wow, they're wealthy because they have each other. They have a community that really has no choice but to rely on each other.
Yeah.
They understand and they appreciate the simpler things in life, which are the finer things. When we just flower up a lot of, a car gets you from one point A to point B, but a nice car will get you from point A to point B feeling good about you. Yeah. So, but it's just the same thing. Transportation is transportation, whether we take the bus, auto, or colectivo.
Yeah. So as we start to wrap up,
thank you.
How are you looking to shift your state of being over the next 12 months? What's the evolution of Ezriyah in his relationships and his brand?
My brand. Well, I feel I would like to have more fun. I've been very dedicated and devotional and wanted to take a spin in that, to the point where even if I felt the relationship was in the way, quote unquote, in the way of me cultivating a depth that I hadn't experienced yet, I put that to the side respectfully and said, hey, look, this is my time for that. And so now this year, I intend to travel a little bit towards the tail end of the year. I want to create even more potent spaces for people to dive into that thing called self-mastery. And I may be even selective into who I'm inviting into these spaces, because I'm fortunate to have other folks to help me to cultivate. So I'll be cultivating me this year. And I think in a way that can be fun, which can incorporate surf, adventure travel. We can do the business masterminds and incorporate adventure. I know how to do that. That's how I started, and especially between Hawaii, Bali, Koh Phangan, like there's temples. So there's other ways of doing the work that I've been able to do.
Yeah.
That may not necessarily have to be so harsh, but it's going to require some maturity and dedication and screening on my end to see who wants to deal with their drug addiction by doing a little world tour and trusting and walking in that way. We can go climb a mountain. We can do things that are alternative, possibly considered unorthodox methods of healing, and achieve the same result and better for those who commit the long haul. And I really like my 8-week programs. So maybe
Talk to me about that. What's your 8-week program and who's it for?
Oh, excellent. So I've been doing 8-week embodiment mastermind program. So it's one-on-one masterminds, which I love the mastermind. I like and really love tuning into the esoteric opening of channel. And when you have two people who are really dedicated to 4, 5, 6 people, right? If it's a group mastermind, the important thing is dedication to a very clear goal, adaptability, and consistent devotion to creating the metaphysical, the unseen, which will then fill in with the seen needs and choice of action. And so then we work on your core needs, your goals, your blueprint for the next couple of years, all the way down to your grandchildren. So I've been able to really work with some men who are younger, even who aren't even in a relationship, and really pour into them and give them the information that they haven't had and guide them through processes. So
sometimes they're the most receptive, the most receptive ones are the young ones that haven't been through those divorces and breakups and fallouts in business, that you can really support them, and their growth can be so fast. You see some of these guys like Iman Gadzi, who's young and crushing it in business, and you realize that sometimes get them while they're young.
Yes, but also I take them while they're old, because they're old and still young. You see, you're young. What makes us young in truth is life experience. I say I'm 80 in this 40-something body, because I've experienced things that some of now my elders haven't experienced, in terms of divorce, in terms of having to start over again, in terms of changing your name, changing your religion, dropping belief systems. And so that when people go through that and, now have the support to move through the existential crisis, it makes a big difference in fortifying them. Even the work I did with the homeless in Hawaii, I was catching people in their moment of, okay, I've lost my job, I don't have a place, and supplying them with everything they need to let them breathe easy and make some good decisions.
So the
mastermind is a good decisions cultivation.
So the 8-week mastermind, who's the specific person that if they're watching this right now, they gotta reach out about this experience?
At this point, let's say, I want to say 21, but really I like them around 25, 27 is, I think, a sweet spot age-wise, all the way up to, believe it or not, we can go up to 60, and it's then the person who's navigating through some depression. If you're navigating with schizophrenia, I can also assist you and help you. If you are someone who's gone through a major life change, divorce, loss of house, estrangement from child, you're in the process. You are also navigating, I'm getting to help men who are married with partners, but going through the birth. What is it to be supported while your partner is navigating the birthing process, the postpartum process? If you're in that tantric space and looking to dive deeper into intimacy, what are some other things that maybe you're not hearing in these spaces that might be beneficial so that you can make good decisions? And of course, this is a premium, right? So people who can afford services from $6,000 and up. And then I also have some different things for those underneath that space, but it's a long-term commitment, and definitely, a financial commitment that you see an undoubted return on.
And finally, what did it take for you to realize your true value in life and then stand firm in how you're receiving based off of what you're giving?
It took a desire and action of fulfilling my call to initiate myself into the truth, to be full spectrum, to be willing to drop what I'm not, and to present that. And so this is where conflict intimacy comes into play. And just really a deep desire to, if this is my last day, I want to make it count, and I'm going to bring forth as much of me as possible as is necessary deemed by me, of course, and the situation, and I know what that feels like. So if you do it at least for a year straight, you start to know what that feels like, and then it can become, then you can up it, but at least your baseline is, I gave it my best today, and I know what that looks like. You're welcome, everyone.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Well, it's been really amazing to finally sit down and have you on the podcast and learn so much from you, and just to experience your energy in this way. Guys, if you feel called, reach out to Ezriyah. He doesn't bite. Definitely is a friendly guy that wants to get to know you, and also creates a very profound experience and transformational container that he talked into some of those profound experiences you might be going through in your life. If you'd like to come and be a guest on my podcast, or even more, join the Business Growth Brotherhood, where we work on personal branding, ethical sales, and scaling our business in conscious alignment. Reach out to me. This is your calling to turn the ship.
Excellent.
Create the growth, create the alignment, the stability, and also challenge yourself to get to the next level. I believe in you. I know you believe. I believe in you.
Absolutely.
And the people that are listening.
You guys too. This is your time.
And yeah, it's been an honor to have you on the Your Brotherly Show today.
Love you, man.
Thank you.